You're listening to Mad Men Sports. And you may ask, why do I have a phone in my hand? And where's Diamond Dave? All those questions might not be answered. We don't know why Diamond Dave's here, but that's fine. Social distancing. But the reason to why I have a phone in my hands, we have a very, very special guest. He is a huge contributor to the Mad Men Sports website. We have Richard Perks, all the way from Peru. Richard, how you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. No complaints. Locked down, safe and sound, 6 feet away from everybody.
There you go. Yeah, 6 feet is very important. And Zach, what's going on, man?
Not much. Keeping my social distancing. I went for a nice hike today at a place where I don't know the name of, but it was fine because there's not a lot of people there, and that's really all that matters in this point in time is just staying away from people as much as I can.
I know I was separately in Allegheny as well, so took the hour-and-a-half drive down. There's a lot of people there, but 6 feet is enough space.
6 feet, the best we can do. And, and Diamond Dave would tell you that, he's doing his best to keep social distancing up and active. So that's the Mad Men difference. We are social distance activists.
We are.
All four of us. We had some big Bills roster moves this week, and spilling in a little into the beginning of the week, kind of rolled into it, and then boom, we're already into the new season. We had some interdivisional news to break that we will get at the end of this all, and then we'll see where it lands from there. But Jake, what are we starting off with today? Is there biggest news possible going on right now?
Yeah, and this happened earlier in the week, which I am very excited about. Having a already strong wide receiver room in John Brown, Cole Beasley, the addition to Stefon Diggs from the Minnesota Vikings, with kind of DeAndre Hopkins kind of being taken off the board, and a weird trade to the Arizona Cardinals. It kind of left Bill scratching like, all right, there's a big name off the board. We didn't really expect him to go. Everything was last minute, but in a blockbuster trade, Stefon Diggs is coming to Buffalo. Fantastic. It was like a first round, a fourth next year, a fifth and a sixth, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, and we also get a seventh.
That's
a big pick. We cannot undervalue the 7th round pick there.
No. What do you think, Richard? What do you think about the Stefon Diggs acquisition?
At the time that it happened, not going to lie, I was a little upset. I'm not a fan of trading first-round picks, but the more I thought about it, you're not going to get a defined talent like Diggs in the first round. Doesn't matter where you're picking. Like, he already has 4 years of solid NFL production, and then the Bills take on his really team-friendly contract for the next 4 years, so they're going to get him throughout his 20s to, peak Stefon Diggs.
Yeah, and to me, it really takes the guessing out of drafting a wide receiver. You have T. Higgins, which it sounds like the Bills front office was not happy with his pro day, and might be one of the reasons to why we made that trade for Stefon Diggs. Zach, what do you think about the acquisition?
Listen, this is a big trade to make, and it's a trade that we've come to trust this front office with. It's a big move. It's a first-round pick, which is something that, when it comes to draft picks, 4 picks are going the other way here, and that's something that you really have to see of what the Bills front office really thinks of this whole thing, is they value picks. They are big. They keep picks in their pocket. They keep picks on the ceiling. They love picks. They prefer to have the picks. That's where they find their 5th round, diamond, so to speak, in Matt Milano, and Taron Johnson's a 5th round pick. They didn't give up picks willy nilly. They've hit on all of their first rounders so far. I don't really think of anyone off the top of my head that they might have missed on. I think that Tre'Davious White guy's okay for now.
He's decent.
Yeah, he's one of the top at his positions, and I guess the only one you could say that maybe the ballot's still out on is Josh Allen, and just because there's so much expectation at that one position. So they must have been looking at the roster, looking at the wide receivers available in the draft, and thought to themselves, you know what? I think where this team is, the window that they have with this 2 years left on the Allen rookie deal, maybe it'd just be better off to go find a wide receiver that's a proven talent. Maybe these guys in the draft really aren't looking as good. You see the number 8 pick in the Arizona Cardinals scrap their plans to potentially get a wide receiver and just go ahead and trade for probably the best in the league for less value than Stefon Diggs came for. But I also think Stefon Diggs is a top 10 wide receiver in the league, which is really crazy. The world's falling apart out there. So, you don't really get time to digest of, what really is coming back for the Bills here. But this might be one of the best wide receivers to ever wear a Buffalo Bills helmet. And that's, James Lofton, Eric Moulds, Andre Reed. There's some really good guys on that list. This guy might, this is a 4-year deal left. No one knows where it's really all going to land. But talent-wise, this guy might be highest on the list in terms of Buffalo Bills wide receivers to wear, the number and the jersey and play home here. So this is a huge talent acquisition. And it's something you really can't replace. You probably couldn't find it in the draft, and you probably couldn't wait on it, nonetheless, with the kind of talent you have on the defense mixed with the offense they're looking to build. This is a great move. At first, the knee-jerk reaction of the whole thing, maybe they gave up a little too much, just because literally 8 hours earlier in the day, the best wide receiver in the league, talent-wise, was given up for peas. So that alone might have just given everyone a little knee-jerk reaction. My reaction was a lot like Richard. I don't like giving up first-round picks, but boom. Okay.
Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins set up a very strange precedent. I mean, he was kind of given away for nothing. So I don't think that we can compare the Stefon Diggs trade to DeAndre Hopkins, because who knows what Bill O'Brien is doing out in Houston. He's wearing multiple hats. I mean, you heard reports of DeAndre Hopkins getting into weird conversations with Bill O'Brien about who he's bringing into the facility, things that we don't want to get in here as a Bills podcast. But I think it's an unfair precedent. So I think for the value, I think it was a good pickup. Like I said earlier, it kind of takes the guessing out of the draft. So
yeah, it can't be overlooked of the amount of value coming back for a first-round pick, and then, let's face it, a bunch of throwaway picks, if nothing else. Yeah. Any other team isn't using those picks.
And we had, those are free picks not free picks, I mean, we traded players away.
But you already have a fifth, you already have a sixth.
So yeah, those were just extra picks.
Absolutely. And, the thing that really calmed me down the most, which I got to say for everyone else, this might be the best way to look at it. When you look at that trade value chart that they have, the best value that they could have gotten for the picks that they traded was the 18th pick. So they moved up 4 spots, potentially, and then just got Stefon Diggs, a proven commodity at the age of, I believe, 26 when the season starts.
Yeah.
So you got 4 more years. He's going to be in his prime. That's the biggest thing. He's going to be in his prime.
Yeah, and I mean, within that same note, I mean, the Buffalo Bills go out and pick Mario Addison, formerly of the Carolina Panthers. We all know that connection with Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott. They love the Panthers. But Mario Addison had 9.5 sacks in 2019, which I believe would tie what Jordan Phillips had. So we're getting a big producer. He's had 29.5 sacks over the last 3 years. So he's proven. He's going back to a friendly defense in Sean McDermott's defense. I think it's a great move. Richard, what do you think about Mario Addison?
I think he's had, 38 and a half in the last 4 years. So getting a solid contributor on the defensive line is exactly what I was looking for. That's what I wanted the first-round pick to be spent on. And signing Mario Addison just completely filled that need. And it really took the sting off that Diggs trade. Even though Addison is only 32, not the peak of his career, but I still think we can get good production out of him because of the way that McDermott and Frazier do rotate on the defensive line.
Definitely. Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this Mario Addison move really gets overlooked because, we were talking before the show about, Richard brought this up, that it happened within the same hour of the Diggs trade announcement. Brandon Beane makes his moves in the dark of the night, so it was like boom, 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 you know what I mean? Addison, Diggs, done. Obviously, Diggs took the precedence there, but, a 32-year-old with, 38 and a half sacks over the last 4 years, you don't get those off of trees, let's just be honest. That's a guy with production, and let me just slow this down a little bit for everyone listening. That's 29 and a half sacks over the last 3 years in a bad Carolina Panthers defense. Put him in a defense right now with the Buffalo Bills that has coverage and solid pieces around him. You are going to get better just better stats, better production out of a guy, unless, these stats aren't frivolous. They're coming into a better system for him. It's only gonna help him flourish. It's only gonna help the defense get better. Pressuring the quarterback is something they lacked on, for a lot of the time. Richard was putting out articles looking for defensive ends in the draft, and that's a perfect move. But to be fair, this guy is 32. You did let go Shaq Lawson. These guys got identical contracts, and what you actually got out of this is you're paying a guy who is 32, fair enough, compared to a guy who's in his mid-20s with less sacks, less production on this defense. And now you're taking a guy on a worse defense, putting him in his spot, and then he already has proven production. He knows the scheme. It's just a match made in heaven for the Bills right here. I think this is the second best move the Bills may have made all offseason.
Really? And let me ask you the question. So you're saying, stats don't lie, of course, but he is on a 3-year, $30 million contract. You think that's a sweet spot? Do you think we got him as a steal? Do you think we're overpaying him? What do you think about that?
Bean knows how to make the numbers work. I'll leave that to him. My personal opinion is I'd rather pay him 3 years, $10 million each, rather than paying Shaq Lawson that, because while I did love Shaq Lawson, huge fan, I wasn't seeing the production that I see. I don't see 29.5 sacks out of Shaq Lawson over the last 3 years. Shaq Lawson has made a gradual impact. He's gotten better every year, I think, but we never saw that huge jump, and I don't know if a guy can make a huge jump to 9.5 sacks consistently over a 4-year stretch. Richard, what do you think?
And the good thing is with Addison, I think it's a front-loaded contract, so he's getting $14 million in the first year, so it's more of a team-friendly deal after year 2. So I don't know if he's going to see out the life of his contract, but we can go for like a mid-round pick, like a Jonathan Greenard or like a Jabari Zuniga out of Florida. So they could learn under Addison. So by the time, if Addison does play out the life of his contract, or if Buffalo, lets him go after year 2, we have a guy waiting in the wings that's ready to, take over and fill that void.
Definitely. And we did make some more acquisitions. There are some players that are going to be making a bigger impact than others. You see AJ Klein. He's been a consistent starter for the Saints. He signed a 3-year, $18 million deal. Vernon Butler, also from the Carolina Panthers, on a 2-year, $15 million. And then let's talk about Quentin Jefferson for a little bit. He's coming from the Seattle Seahawks. 2 years, $13.5 million contract. Richard, I know you were talking about this before we had started. What are your kind of thoughts on Quentin Jefferson?
I think he's a very versatile player. I've seen him play inside. I've seen him play defensive end. I think I saw in one game he ended up covering a running back out of the backfield. So he's very versatile across the line. He also brings a little bit of edge and nastiness to him, because he's the guy, if you remember, that almost jumped into the stands in Jacksonville when the Jaguars and Seahawks played a couple of years ago. So I just think that kind of versatility and that kind of nastiness will really help at Oliver, because it'll take away some of the double teams, and it'll really allow players like Oliver and Addison to really get into the backfield.
Yeah, no, and I couldn't agree more. Zach, do you have any thoughts?
I think this is a good deal solely off the fact that, the Seahawks fans were mad that he was gone. We're surprised that they weren't able to get a deal done with him. Usually when that happens, especially with, a team that's so successful lately, it's got the longevity of success like the Seattle Seahawks, you kind of, wear it as like you wear it as pride on your shirt. You like the fact that this guy is now in your rotation. When they bring a defensive lineman in, they're going to get playing time. These guys get rotations in. They get some action. I think there's a lot to be said about Jefferson's ability to play inside, outside, and just be able to spread himself on the field. We all remember the fight in the Jacksonville fan. I think that I like a guy bringing that kind of edge. Now, not in the same breath as Jordan Phillips. Jordan Phillips is a high-energy guy. But this guy could bring a little bit of a nastiness and a next layer to the Jordan Phillips, attitude to the defensive line. This guy might bring, that nastiness that Richard was talking about.
Yeah, and versatility is everything with him, with Richard and yourself, Zach, speaking about his ability to play inside and outside. And we are no stranger to knowing that the Buffalo Bills love to rotate their defensive line. I mean, with Harrison Phillips expected to be back from, I believe, an ACL tear. Ed Oliver, of course, he's got a high motor, but that's perfect. But we're going to need depth players with high skill levels if we certainly want to make a push. So, hey, I love all the signings. And let's kind of talk about this as well. Who do you think out of these acquisitions is going to have the biggest impact? You have Stefon Diggs, you have Mario Addison, you have all these other players. Who's going to be making the biggest impact for the Buffalo Bills in the 2020 season? Richard, we can start with you.
Yeah, I mean, the low-hanging fruit would obviously be, Stefon Diggs. But I think A.J. Klein taking over that Lorenzo Alexander, strong side linebacker role, he'll be out in the field for, those run downs, the run support. I don't know how good he can be coverage. I really haven't looked that far ahead yet. But just having him out there being a mobile, physical linebacker who has played in the Sean McDermott system before, because before he played for the Saints, he played for the Panthers. So he has that familiarity with the defense. So I think just having three consistent linebackers on the field, 2 or 3 downs at a time is going to be huge in run support and pass coverage. But also think about this: you could have a front four of Mario Addison, Ed Oliver, Quentin Jefferson, Ray Hughes coming at the quarterback. I'll take that any day of the week.
Definitely. And to your point about him in coverage, he certainly had a really good year in pass coverage in 2018. He only had 22 completed passes against him in coverage, let 0 touchdowns. So that's fantastic. Last year, though, unfortunately, in 2019, he allowed 4 touchdowns, 376 yards, and 36 completions. We would look for him, of course, to kind of improve, obviously. I mean, we are not a defense who wants to give up 4 touchdowns by any position, any player a year, especially with Josh Allen still growing. We want that elite defense back. I certainly don't have any qualms about him. I think he's proven himself in that Sean McDermott defense, as you had said, Richard. So I'm excited to have him replacing Lorenzo Alexander. Now, Zach, let me pose that question to you. Who do you think will have the biggest impact?
When I thought of this topic, I was thinking A.J. Klein. So it's hard to triple down on you guys right now. But, I don't know. I think the biggest impact at this point, we haven't even seen yet. Because I think, it's something to think about. But I think out of these guys, maybe it's the Poyer move, keeping that guy around for another 2 years. That might be a good move. I know if Diamond Dave was sitting in his spot outside of the social distancing, he would say that Jordan Poyer is probably sticking around, and him sticking around in this defense is a good move. So I don't know. I think outside of Klein, maybe it's this Jefferson move because, he now adds to the defense. Maybe it's the Vernon Butler move, and maybe he replaces Star Lotulelei when it's all said and done. And you keep him around, and now you got a guy that's proven. You keep him in the rotation. You keep him around just long enough to play out his rest of his career as ability. Like, there's so much uncertainty. I think filling the Lorenzo Alexander spot was a huge move.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have 2 very young guys in Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds. You're going to want a veteran player on that kind of mid-secondary. So A.J. Klein kind of having that experience is going to nothing but help them improve. And kind of to another question as well, I mean, we've made a lot of acquisitions still mostly on the defensive side, which, of course, with losing a couple players, you still need to fill those voids. Where do you think they still need to upgrade? And that can be in free agency or, of course, in the draft upcoming next month. Zach, we can start with you. Who do you think they need to upgrade?
The obvious answer is probably the guy that needs to replace Frank Gore. Since the rumors of before, 2 weeks ago when Devonta Freeman was going to be available, I think we even had a podcast where we did who's going to replace this. and I said Deontay Freeman, and I still want Devonta Freeman to replace him, in that gadget role of like secondary running backs position. But where do I think they need to? I just think you need to improve your tackle depth, because if one of those two guys go down still, you're looking at not much there. So improve your tackle depth. You got the interior down. You got Long. You got Feliciano, Spain, Morse. Those guys, those 4 parts are interchangeable. Obviously, you still need more depth outside of those 4 parts, but a tackle wouldn't hurt. A running back wouldn't hurt. I would like to see them bulk up their offense with more skill players. It's a shame that they let McKenzie go and did not tender him, but I think you could maybe upgrade to that spot and enhance the rest of the room by bringing in someone better than him. So, Richard, what do you got?
I mean, to add on to your point about the offensive line, I mean, LeRager and Waddle still available. There's still a couple veteran guys that are out there in the free agent market. And then I was reading something about the Bills brought in a tackle from SAU before the whole, shutdown and lockdown things happened. And talk about chemistry, this guy blocked for Devin Singletary in college, so what better way to help Devin Singletary out than bring a guy that he played with. But I think running back, RB2 would be a good place to upgrade. When I saw that Todd Gurley got released, I was all aboard the Todd Gurley train. You saw Stefon Diggs try to recruit him on Twitter. You saw Andre Reed trying to recruit him on Instagram. But, like my friend Dan said, Gurley was going to the Falcons, and then I think it was like within the next 24 hours, Gurley had a contract with the Falcons. So, I mean, there's always a couple guys you can take in the 4th round, 5th round. But I guess running back would be the good place to go, because you can't just leave Singletary out there 75% of the time. You need to have a sure-handed back to take over that other 40% of the carries.
Definitely. And my point of view is, Cody Ford struggled last year. I don't think that a lot of people are going to disagree. We did see steady improvement towards the last end of the season, but I would like to see a right tackle being brought in, whether that is in free agency, which I don't think there are many value players there, but I'm more really looking to the draft. Who I was really kind of excited about the possibility of acquiring was Brian Bulaga, but he signed with the Chargers, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm still looking to kind of fill that void, at least to give Cody Ford some competition. Needs to learn how to move them feet. But I don't know. So, yeah.
Well, Richard, we appreciate you joining us from Peru today. I know it's a crazy time out there, and it's not the best situation. It's not exactly where you'd want to be at the moment. But we're all thinking of you, and we appreciate you joining us today, and we appreciate the listeners for listening to us. I know the world's crazy out there, and if we could be 20, 25 minutes of of an escape, we'd love to be it. Take care, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.